Born in the year 673 AD, somewhere in Sunderland, near St. Peter's Monastery in northern England, Bede grew up. There is little known about his early life and childhood before becoming a monk. Bede did not write much about himself throughout his life. Entering the monastery at Marmouth Jarrow at age 7, Bede would go on to write some of the most important historical works of his day, including the ecclesiastical history of the English nation. Before his birth, England and Ireland went through regime changes, colonization, and turmoil, with the influx of Roman invaders and later Anglo-Saxons. Earning the title Doctor of the Church and the Father of English History, this documentary seeks to answer the question: how did monasteries help Bede through his journey to becoming a prominent author and historian? The word Irish is seldom coupled with the word civilization. The Celtic people were noted to be welcoming to any social status. Their education system is built on people who desire to learn. The monks had great desire and passion for finding new books. Any book that they found they would take and bring it back to monasteries. On a plain to the east of the lower lake, the monks built what would become, in time, a kind of university city, to which came thousands of hopeful students from all over Ireland, then from England, and last from everywhere in Europe. The monks were known for them turning no one away. This generosity extended not only to a variety of people, but to a variety of ideas. The monks had no censorship in their teaching. Homo sum humani nil a me alium un puto. I am human being, so nothing human is strange to me. No censorship left the church and the rulers angry to the variety of books that were accessible. This disagreement of having no censorship did not stop the monks due to their passion for educating and the reaction of the community. Wherever they went, the Irish brought with them their books, many unseen in Europe for centuries, tied to their waists as signs of triumph, just as Irish heroes had once tied to their waists their enemies' heads. Whenever they went, they brought with them their love of learning and their skills in bookmaking. In the bays and valleys of their exile, they reestablished literacy and breathed new life into the exhausted literacy culture of Europe. And this is how the Irish saved civilization. The Irish love of learning spread to France with the creation of Fairmonters Abbey by St. Columban's, a missionary working primarily in Scotland during the 560s. His work was renowned and caught the attention of many powerful nobles throughout Europe, including Chengeric, Count of Meaux, a wealthy Frenchman, and his daughter Burgonne d'Ofara. Seeking a life of service as a nun, convinced her father to found Fairmonters Abbey in connection with Columban's. This was not where the Irish connection stopped, however. Eoghan Coda, daughter of King Eirconbert, was a nun and a student at the dual monastery, one that housed both nuns and monks. While living at Fairmonters Monastery in France, she was responsible for further development of monasteries for the express purpose of educating women so that they could be ready to be married. Many of the women who went to such monasteries were the wives and daughters of other Anglo kings. Although this education would not have matched what the noble men would have received, it is still of note that it was organized education that was available to some women, and it is equally important that Bede saw the value of including this in his works. Parallel to this French dual monastery was a Northumbrian monastery founded in Whitby in 657 AD. Abbess Hilda, later Saint Hilda, was gifted land by King Oswy, a strong supporter of her work. This dual monastery became a great early English monastery. Hilda, for her part, was a strong supporter of the Celtic religion, particularly in their debate over the true date of Easter. Bede writes extensively about Hilda's work in his ecclesiastical history. Without the mission of the Irish monks, who single-handedly refounded European civilization throughout the continent, in the bays and valleys of their exile, the world that came after their books, and our own world would never have come to be. Bede supported the Celtics' mission in their active involvement with education and scholarship, but there is a lot of debate between historians on his support being looked through a critical lens. The Roman period in England began in 43 AD and lasted up until about 383 AD. There's plenty of evidence that the Roman British were a literate people due to laws, civic buildings, milestones, religious altars, tombstones, and letters preserved on wooden blocks. The efforts of the church, especially St. Augustine, were to spear front of literacy. Churches were the pathway that many children were sent to learn and become a nun, monk, or priest. There were also grammar and song schools, in which they have often been considered one school, but completely differentiated in function as they were in teaching and generally in their government. Though in small places, they were sometimes united under one master. Song schools were in essence special or professional schools for those engaged in actual performance of services, whereas grammar schools gave a general education, as much needed by the statesman, the lawyer, the civil servant, and the clerk, as by the priest or cleric. But grammar at this time did not mean learning about the structure of language. That limited meaning did not develop until the Middle Ages. Rather, it was a preparation for reading, especially reading aloud, and was taken to involve comprehension and commentary, so that content was inseparable. This caused issues within the church due to people being able to read other documents that were frowned upon by religious leaders. Education further evolved in the Anglo-Saxon period. The Anglo-Saxon period from 410 to 1066 was dominated by written works produced by the church, for the church, and with members of the church in mind as readers. Due to this fact, the majority of education taking place during the Anglo-Saxon era took place at monasteries and was exclusively for monks, priests, and other clergy members. Nuns as well, to a lesser extent. Monasteries were run by monks. Double monasteries were organized by monks and nuns. Those who entered into this lifestyle came from all different backgrounds. They included kings, royal princesses, Northumbrian nobles, great churchmen, ordinary peasants. Those who chose this life of worship showed the further deviation from the old Catholic and pagan norms of religious practices, which celebrated life and its many intricacies. Instead, Christianity promoted the ideal of withdrawing from the world in favor of a life of prayer. Education was seen as a means of improving one's relationship to God. Monks who could read and understand the Bible were that much closer to God and could better serve Him in this life. Learning and art were of great import to the church at this time, because further expansion of biblically educated class would prevent heathenism and maintain faithfulness. In tandem with this, the establishment of libraries at monasteries became more common at this time. Saint Benedict Biscop worked in service of Northumbrian King Oswy and created multiple libraries throughout England, most notably in Whitby, Ripon, and Jarrow. Many of these books were brought back from 6 separate trips to Rome throughout the 670s that Biscop took in order to fill these libraries. Hundreds, possibly thousands of books from Rome were incorporated into his collections. With that being said, it is easy to see that the religious influence in this creation of libraries was strong. Bede would later use the library at Jarrow as reference for much of his work on the ecclesiastical history and some of his other work. The Celtic saving civilization, with their emphasis on preserving all books with no censorship, led to a literate society, which led to support from historian views on Bede to be influential and support the history of his people. Although the work of the Celtics would take place before the birth of Bede, it impacted his work in ecclesiastical. This can be debated due to the critical lens that some historians state that Bede had when talking about the Celtics. The advancement in general learning practices in the Roman period through schools supports Bede's ideology surrounding education access. The Anglo-Saxon period saw a boom in monastery influence, support, and work. This time, when monasteries were being started and expanded, really provided Bede with the tools he needed for his work on the ecclesiastical history. The books and resources he had access to at Whitby, Jarrow, and Ripon were invaluable to his writings and the influence he would gain for his writings. In 735, at the age of 62, Bede died, likely at the monastery at Jarrow where he spent much of his life. He was originally interned at Jarrow Monastery, but was moved in the late 10th century by Alfred Watteau, a priest and relic collector. Guided by visions to visit great monasteries and collect relics for preservation, he arrived at Jarrow to reclaim Bede's remains. Bede was reinterred at Durham Cathedral. In 1370, Bede's remains were translated or moved to their shrine in Galileo Chapel, part of the larger cathedral. An eternal flame lamp hangs above his tomb, as do the words in golden letters on the wall. Christ is the morning star, who when the night of this world is past, brings to his saints the promise of the light of life and opens everlasting day. It is here that Bede rests.